So I was explaining my plans for the Narcoossee Corridor to a colleague of mine, and he asked me a very good question. He said, okay, that looks all great. That's going to definitely solve the problem, or it's going to make it much better. But how are you going to pay for it? Well, it got me thinking. Absolutely to what I love the best, creating a value proposition. So what I have done, I put my engineering hat on, and I put my environmental hat on, and I started doing some research and some calculations. So, to understand, the Narcoossee Corridor daily takes 58,000 cars, and if you are hearing noise, that's because I'm standing right next to it. And there's cars just passing, whizzing by me the whole time. So, 58,000 vehicles every day. And that's a study from October of 2025. Since then, much more development has been accomplished down south. On average, it's 30 to 45 minutes of delay. I used for my calculation 30 minutes, and I calculated 1.2 people in the car, and I used 250 working days out of the year. So if you multiply 58,000 people, and I only took them one way, not both ways, that 58,000 people going there and back, only did one. So 58,000 times half hour, 250 days out of the year, and 1.2 person in a car, it's 8.7 million hours. 8.7 million man hours that is wasted just standing in the traffic. Florida's GDP per capita currently is at $78,000. That is $36 an hour. If you multiply 8.7 million hours times 36, you're going to get $313 million of GDP that has been missed. Or you can just call it 8.7 million of hours that is taken away from families, from dads playing catch with the kids or meeting with friends. That's not all. That's only the hours. Let's look at the consumption of the cars and the wasted gas. So car in a heavy traffic is using half to a 1 gallon of gas per hour. So if we multiply these hours, you're going to get about 5 million gallons of fuel being wasted in this traffic. If you multiply that by $4 per gallon, that's $20 million of gas just burned into the atmosphere. All right, and you think that's all? Nope, that's not all. Let's go one further. Every gallon of gas is a hydrocarbon. So when you burn it and release the energy, you get the energy, and on the other side, you're gonna get carbon dioxide, CO2. And out of each gallon of gas, you're gonna get 19.6 pounds of CO2 emissions. So if you multiply this, you're gonna get 50,000 tons of CO2 being released in addition to the traffic. This is just for standing in a line. If we would multiply this by Northeast carbon tax, it would be worth upwards of $700,000 a year. If we would use a calculation for carbon tax in California, it would be upwards of $1.5 million. Let's see what 50,000 tons of CO2 means. 1 acre of forest of mixed woods sequester, meaning it captures between 1 and 3 tons of CO2 per year. A nice managed pine forest does somewhere between 3 and 15 if it's fully developed. So for my calculation, I used 5 tons of CO2 sequestration per acre. At that point, it would take 10,000 acres just to deal with the traffic on few miles of this beautiful road down here in Lake Nona to sequester the additional emissions from just the traffic. That's not from driving around. That's just from sitting for half an hour in the traffic. And you think that's all? No, we got one more, and that's heat pollution. Combustion engine in a car is approximately 30% efficient. If it's just puttering around, it's nowhere near that, but for our calculation, we're gonna use 30% efficiency of a vehicle. That means 70% of the gas that you're burning is just heat, and it's not used for propelling the car. So 5 million gallons are releasing about 120,000 BTUs per each gallon. That equals to 426 billion BTU. And just so you know, that's about 35 million tons of heat. Average house in Florida has about 3.5 ton AC unit. So with 8760 hours per year, we would get more than 1,100 air conditioning units that needs to run all year to displace the same amount of heat that we are just adding to our community. So if you want to recap this, we pay in gas to waste time while we are gassing ourselves and cooking ourselves. The impact, if we would transfer everything into the dollars, would be somewhere around $350 million every year. So now the question that my friend asked me, how can I pay for it? Let's spin that around. How can we not accelerate to make sure that the infrastructure is done properly and the cars and people are not standing right here on the street, wasting gas, wasting time, and wasting the resources that we have? And the recap: GDP impact of $313 million, or 8.7 million man hours that is taken away from the families. 5 million gallons of fuel that is worth about $20 million. Cost of greenhouse gases equal to additional 10,000 acres of forested land. And heat emissions that would be worth 1,100 AC units to displace the same amount of heat or to cool it off. So how can we justify building these roads? How can we justify not to build these roads? We need to definitely eliminate the traffic in the area. This is Oreo, and I'm George Haas, and I approve this message.